Hi, my name is Angelo Lopez. I'm a Filipino-American editorial cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm honored today to be speaking to Ward Sutton. Am I pronouncing your last name right? Sutton and stuff?
You got it. Yeah, and it's an
Okay.
honor to talk to you, Angelo. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll give a brief intro to you and stuff. You are an editorial cartoonist for the Boston Globe. And I guess you're the real cartoonist behind Stan Kelly, the fictional cartoonist of The Onion, right?
Yep. Yep.
And you are also your work is seen in The Nation, The Village Voice, the New York Times, the New Yorker, and several other periodicals. And you just told me this about a minute ago. Next week on The Simpsons, a segment of their episode will have some of your work, right?
Yeah. Stan Kelly, the fake cartoonist I created for The Onion, he was asked to create an opening segment for the show, and it's only 20 seconds long. It's short, but because time is tight in the network TV world, but it was a very exciting project. And so if people tune into The Simpsons next Sunday, it starts as if it's a Kelly cartoon, and then it kind of
Um,
dovetails into The Simpsons.
oh, congratulations. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
thank you. Thank you. And I'll
Yeah.
pass along your congratulations to Mr. Kelly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I think the
Yeah.
last time we met briefly in the Sacramento convention, met my
Yeah.
wife and I met you and stuff. Yeah, we both remember you're very nice and stuff. So thank you and stuff.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the AAEC convention, correct?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was and stuff. Yeah, I
Yeah, that
think
was a lot of fun.
yeah. And oh, also, so today we'll be talking about your cartooning career and I guess your thoughts on the editorial cartooning field today and its response to Donald Trump. But there is a sad thing I want to announce and stuff is that, yeah, I just told you this before our talk and stuff that one of our cartoonist colleagues, Clay Jones, just recently had a stroke. So, we're going to be, I think, Jack Oman and Kevin Necessary and I think also John Octor. They're doing a GoFundMe fundraiser for him. So for anybody who's listening to our talk today and stuff, you can go to. I'll put below where you can go donate to help Clay Jones with his recovery and stuff. So okay,
That's great. That's awesome. I
okay.
was so sorry to hear that news. He's a great guy, great talent, and I consider him the hardest working man in the cartooning business. He's just been he does so much work and he travels, but that's just very sad news. So it's cool
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
some support is going out to him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I wish him the best too and stuff. So I met him briefly. I don't know him very well, but he was very nice to me. And we met in the San Francisco convention, but he actually brought his tablet with him. So I talked to him briefly, but he was actually busy trying to think of ideas for his cartoon. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, you're
yeah,
right. Even in the convention, he really wasn't having fun. He was working on his next cartoon and stuff. So.
yeah. The first time I met you at the 2018 convention in Sacramento, he was there doing the same thing. He was like running off to sit in a coffee shop and draw on his tablet and create a new cartoon. Yeah, he really works it.
Yeah, he works a lot harder than me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, okay, well, Pip, back to you and stuff. But let me ask my first question and stuff. How did you become interested in editorial cartooning, and who are your cartoonist heroes and heroines?
I would say that I was interested in art and drawing and comics at a very young age. Like, I won an art contest when I was in first grade at Saks Fifth Avenue
Oh, wow.
when I was a kid in New Jersey. Um, and I just, I got a lot of support family wise, keep doing it, so that was, I feel very lucky, fortunate for that. But I started out being interested in comic books and trying to learn how to I might have started out tracing a little bit, and then I'd try to learn how to draw myself, like how to draw the characters. And
Yeah.
then around in the time of grade school, I was approached by the parent of a friend of mine um, who worked for the local community paper, and she said, "Have you ever done editorial cartoons?" And I said, "No." I mean, I was in fifth or sixth grade or something, and she said, "Well, why don't you do some and I'll see if I can get them in the paper." So I did some cartoons just about life in school,
Yeah.
and she wrote a little piece about me in the newspaper and
Oh, wow.
ran one of my cartoons, about some student issue. And then the paper ended up, I got into middle school the next year, and the paper ended up working with me. I ended up becoming their cartoonist for a period of time.
Yeah, you
So,
started early.
yeah, yeah. So I was addressing, they would basically feed me the issue like, oh, the high school needs an all-weather track because their track is so bad. Can you do a cartoon about that? And so I would kind of work off their suggestion of what the themes would be. Um, but it really gave me a start professionally at a very young age. And then I cartooned through high school and was the cartoonist in college. I was in college in Minnesota and I won a Minnesota Page One Award for one of my editorial cartoons. As a
Oh,
student, so that was again another moment of encouragement.
yeah,
But I think my passion for it has really come from just my social conscience and wanting to feel like I want to use my talents to speak out about
yeah,
injustice and things that I see are wrong in the world, and that I'm making use of the talents in a way that's positive for society in whatever small way I can.
yeah, yeah. Is your cartooning sort of like social activism for you?
It feels like it, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, yeah, it was for me too. For some reason, when I talk to some cartoonists, they kind of think they get annoyed at me when I talk about cartoon as active. They see it more as journalism and stuff, but
Hmm.
I actually don't see much of a difference between them because both journalism and activism are for similar goals and stuff. But yeah,
Hmm.
some cartoonists have reacted negatively to me for that and stuff. So I thought, oh, okay, I won't mention it much and stuff. But since you're saying that and stuff, do you see much of a
Yeah.
difference between journalism and activism, or no?
Well, I mean, I guess I can see how, I mean, it's a tricky thing. I mean, I do believe cartooning is journalism, but I also believe
Yeah.
it's like the editorial side of journalism. So it's not just reporting. It can't, some people can use cartoons to do reporting. And in fact, as you surely know, the Pulitzers changed their editorial cartooning award category to illustrated reporting and commentary,
Uh,
which to me is a whole different thing, and it's a bit of a slight to editorial cartooning as a profession,
yeah.
as if there's something wrong with having a point of view in our work, which is really the whole point of it.
Yeah.
So I think there's nuance to like what makes a good editorial cartoon. If it's just didactic and hammering a point home without having much nuance or grace to it, that I think that can be problematic, and maybe that's why some cartoonists bristle at the notion of social activism. For me, I,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't, I don't see that as a bad thing. I mean, uh, I'm, I feel like editorial cartooning is all about expressing, as a cartoonist, your perspective of the world, and that's naturally going to lend itself to advocating for things and being against other things. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, I try to be I always try to be open-minded and unbiased and not blindly loyal to one thing or another.
Yeah.
But I definitely come from my own perspective. So I might, uh, you know, I will criticize people who I support when they need criticizing, and
Yeah.
um, that's just the way it is. I think, but I'm not going to criticize people in a way for things that I don't believe in. Like I remember I was cartooning back during the first Gulf War,
Yeah.
and somebody. somebody, this was the very beginning of my career, and somebody like actually called the newspaper office I was working at and talked to me and said, "Why don't you do a cartoon against Saddam Hussein? Write a cartoon about how bad Saddam Hussein is." And I was like, I don't have any love for Saddam Hussein, but
Yeah,
what I see is happening is a big boondoggle of war right now, and that's not the point I want to be making.
yeah.
But anyway, that's a very, I guess I've kind of digressed off of your question.
No, no,
Uh,
that's okay. I mean, I'm the one who put that question to you and stuff. I think it's just with me, since editorial cartoons are in the editorial section, and
yeah.
since editorial writers express their opinion, so a liberal editorial writer is going to express in a liberal opinion and stuff, and a conservative, and that's just to be given and stuff, right? And stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
What do
but
you, so do you feel like it's social activism for yourself?
I did in the beginning and stuff just because I'm in a Filipino American newspaper, and I
Hmm.
noticed like some cartoon. I take my cues from other cartoonists, so like David Brown or Eric Garcia. They do stuff for um, Black and Latino newspapers, and I noticed for them, their cartoons are advocate for their community, and that sort of lends itself to activism. But
Mm.
I started thinking myself as a journalist only when I started winning journalist awards and stuff. So,
Uh-huh.
so I figured, well, if they're going to give me an award, I guess I'm going to be a journalist and stuff. But I,
Yeah.
I think because I'm in a community news, or I used to be in a community newspaper that was specific to the Filipino American community. I originally thought of myself as an advocate for the community,
Hmm.
and that's more activist. But yeah, if you're going to give me awards for journalism, I'm happy to take it. I'm happy to.
Uh-huh.
So but I think part of it is I think journalism. There's journalist. You know, guidelines or journalist, in
Ethics
order,
codes and
yeah,
things.
codes and stuff. So, but I've always thought of myself more as an advocate, but I do respect journalism and stuff. So,
Hmm.
and yeah, I haven't won an award in years and stuff, but when I was winning awards, my wife and I would go to Washington, D.C. It was always cool for us to go to Washington, D.C. and to meet these journalists from that we see in like the news and stuff. So I thought, wow, this is great company. I guess I don't mind being a journalist if it means going to.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on.
Yeah, yeah. So you consider yourself both a journalist and an activist, right?
Yeah, I would say, and then I also feel like I have a foot in the realm of comedy as well,
Oh yeah, yeah.
because uh, because what I think you can I think that's a big part of what I do is trying to make people laugh, um, in addition to making a statement. Some obviously not every cartoon is ha ha funny that I
Yeah.
make, but I want it to grab people, use humor to kind of reach to people. I think humor can bridge divides and get people on board or get them kind of rallied up. Like if they think something's really funny, they're like, "Oh, this is great." It's kind of what makes things go viral online these days too.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I'm often thinking of those things of like, is this the right tone? Is it the right message? Is it funny? I guess
yeah.
I'm thinking in all those, wearing all those hats and
Uh,
thinking in all those directions.
cool, cool. Yeah, I'm curious. Who are your heroes?
Um, well, in the beginning, since you were asking how I got started, I was really inspired by Burt Breathed, who did Bloom
Oh,
County,
Bloom County.
and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was I was just a huge fan of his cartoons, how funny they were, how they had kind of a certain kind of commentary underneath,
yeah,
um, and that I would say he was one of the biggest inspirations for me to become a cartoonist. Then I also liked Doonesbury. When
yeah,
I first saw Tom Tomorrow, Dan Perkins, his real name, but when I first saw his work, that was a real revelation to me because he was working in this way that was totally unlike the standard single panel daily editorial cartoonists. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow, an editorial cartoon can be something really different. And so that was and he's a friend now, so it might be funny to reference him in that way, but
Yeah.
he really had a big impact on me. And then other peers like um, Ken Fisher, aka Ruben Bowling
Oh,
of
yeah.
Tom
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Dancing Bug. He's a great talent. Jen Sorensen,
Yeah.
uh, uh, and I'm going to be forgetting people, but there's so many great out there. Um, but I I'm always looking at lots of cartoons and just soaking in as much as I can. And I
Yeah.
guess for some of the older works, Herblock is a real classic.
Yeah.
Oliphant. Um, uh, yeah, and people like Ed Sorel, they did some interesting things. I've also, worked as an illustrator. So
Oh,
another factor in what I'm doing, I would say, is the visual. So there's
yeah.
in addition to journalism and activism and comedy, there's also the visual. Like I'm thinking a lot about how I'm creating my cartoons, how they're going to look, how they communicate with the visual. And I guess that's what attracts me to cartooning is that it's both drawing and writing. I always think it's funny. I don't know if you get this much, but when people will say, "Oh, I've got an idea for you for a cartoon," and I get more and more of that these days as the world gets crazier and crazier. But
Yeah.
I, I always feel a little bad, like thanks, but that's part of what I do. Like
Yeah.
that's part of the fun of cartooning is both writing and drawing it. I'm not really looking to other people to get the idea or to write it. And I've made a decision decades ago that I wasn't going to draw somebody else's cartoons.
Yeah.
There was a moment when I was starting out where some of that was offered to me as possible work, and I was
Yeah.
pretty adamant that I'm going to write and draw. I'm going to be the author of my own work. I don't want to just be illustrating someone else's idea because that's a
Yeah.
huge part of it for me.
Yeah. It's just part of the fun, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
completely.
yeah. But one of the good things about you, you're a good writer and stuff,
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because this year I've tried to do more multi-panel cartoons, but I
Uh-huh.
enjoyed the drawing a lot better than I enjoyed the writing and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Do you, is it easier to draw for you or is it easier to write?
I think of it really as a two-step process. So it typically will take me, depending on the size of the cartoon, and typically I spend like a whole day writing it, even if
Uh,
it's just a single panel.
yeah,
And then I spend probably another day drawing it, even if it's a single panel. Although if it's a multi-panel, sometimes it takes more than a day. It might take a few days.
yeah,
Um, And so what I typically will do is like for writing, I have to get in a headset where I'm just blocking everything out and focused and also maybe researching as
yeah,
I'm coming up with the idea and stuff like that. But then once the idea is set, then it's a little bit of like breathe a sigh of relief and I can like listen to podcasts or the radio or something and just be drawing because now the idea is done and I'm drawing it. Not that there isn't tinkering with the cartoon once I've gotten to that stage because sometimes I'll retool something here and there because I'll as I'm drawing it I realize, oh, this could be better communicated this way and I'll kind of tweak it a little bit and change some things. But
yeah,
uh I had a um I had a moment where somebody it was actually Dan Perkins, Tom Tomorrow. We were out one night and he made a comment about my illustrating and that I was he was complimentary saying I was a good illustrator and that was an asset for me in cartooning. And I don't know that I at that point, this is maybe 20 years ago, I don't know that I'd thought about it that clearly at the time. And some
yeah,
of my cartoons back then looked rougher. They were rougher, they weren't as refined as what I do now.
yeah,
And I kind of thought about that and I was like, oh, I hadn't, yeah, that's true. I should lean into that. I should really put
yeah,
work into the caricatures, into the drawings, into the design of what I'm doing.
yeah,
And so I was kind of grateful for that because I have put a lot more into my cartooning in that way. I sort of melded I for a while I had sort of my cartooning world that felt a little more kind of punk rock and just and
Kind of edgy,
gestural
I guess.
and
Edgy.
spontaneous. Yeah,
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 yeah.
sketchy. And then I had my illustration world, which was more refined, and I'd be called by art directors and working for magazines and stuff.
Um,
And then it's like I kind of melded them together, and it's like, oh, I should put more work into the drawing in the cartoons. So then another thing is when you're asking about multi-panel cartoons, drawing like a 9-panel cartoon, that becomes like 9 drawings. A single panel cartoon is 1 drawing. Or even 6 panel. I guess I don't do 9 panels that often, but 6 panel is something kind of standard that I do for the Boston Globe. And
um,
yeah, I have to think about it because it's like that's a lot of work. And then I'm also, I mean, I don't know what you think, but I'm also wondering about right now, there's so much out there that is trying to grab all of our attention that I've gotten to a point where I'm like, are people going to read 6 panels? Are they going to
yeah,
look at that and say, oh no, that's too much. I can't go there, but I don't have time for that. I'll come back later. I mean, I'd like to think people aren't that way, but I also know that I've had times where I look at a dense multi-panel cartoon and think, I'm going to have to come back to that, you know? Whereas, I think back in as I was saying, how I was inspired by Tom Tomorrow years ago and
yeah,
seeing the way he was doing cartoons, and it kind of opened up this possibility to me like, wow, a cartoon doesn't have to just be a single panel. And around that time, I was sort of, uh, I had kind of a negative feeling about the sort of standard single panel cartoon, which
yeah.
the Kelly character kind of grew out of. Kelly is sort of parodying that type of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cartoonist. Um, but I have to say, now so I felt like I was kind of part of the alternative cartooning
Yeah,
movement where it wasn't just a single panel, it could be multi-panel and more
yeah,
nuanced approach to topics or talking about broader themes instead of just one issue of the moment.
yeah,
Um, and I've loved working that way, but I'm also now starting to realize the value of a concise single panel cartoon that just communicates immediately, as we're all competing against memes and things like
yeah,
that are just that people see and forward it and repost it.
yeah,
You kind of want to be in that ball game and get people's attention that way. I think it's like, I guess they call it the attention economy. It's
yeah.
something that's something I think about. I don't know if you do as a cartoonist, just are
Um,
people going to read this if I make it, you know?
yeah. I think a lot of our cartoon, it depends on who we're targeting as our audience, right? You know,
Hmm.
I talked to Steve Brodner a while ago, and he said that he assumes a more literate readership because his stuff are in magazines,
Hmm.
where people are, since they're doing magazines and they're reading these long articles, he makes an assumption that they're more literate, more newsworthy, not newsworthy, that's the wrong word, news they're up in the news and stuff, and so
Yeah.
he doesn't have to, he can assume things of his readers. And I'm assuming with you, when you do your multi-panels, you have to necessarily assume certain things about your readers in order for this multi-panel cartoon to work. Is that,
Yeah.
am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you are right. And it can be tricky sometimes because you want to hit the sweet spot of communicating things that people will get.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be putting in stuff that's going to go over people's heads or it's too insidery that they're not going to get it. But you also don't want to make it so obvious that it's too obvious and it kills the humor and it kills the point you're trying to make. That again lends itself to
You're
Kelly.
making a Stan Kelly type cartoon.
Yeah, yeah. Where Kelly never underestimates, he never overestimates his audience. He's always assuming the reader knows nothing, and so that he has to explain everything to them and label every character, and
Yeah, yeah.
that makes the Kelly cartooning fun. But
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
yeah,
Well, here, my next. Are you finished with this one? I was going to ask my next question. It's what are you worried about right now with the Trump administration?
just in the world in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much everything. I mean, uh, uh, I
Yeah.
spent some of the spring living in Amsterdam, uh,
Oh, okay.
which was a lot of fun. And looking back at the U.S. from Europe, it's like, do I have to
How
go back?
crazy do we look right now? I mean,
Pretty crazy. I felt in the spring that people in Europe, at least the people I was encountering, weren't necessarily aware of it as much as I might have thought at that
yeah.
moment. This was back in April or so.
Was this
And
when the tariffs were hitting, or when he was announcing or was this before?
the tariffs were kind of just at their beginning, I think,
Okay.
if I'm remembering correctly. But I met people, randomly just being on the street or being like in a bar or something and talking to people because I was interested to hear people's opinions and stuff. And it felt to me that some of the people were like, well, it might be good to have a change and have Trump in there.
Yeah.
Uh, Other people were horrified, of course,
Yeah.
but I didn't really feel like so some of those people I felt like I don't know that you're totally getting what he's doing, and it's of course only gotten a lot worse since April, since I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think these notions of sending troops into cities
Yeah.
uh, is horrifying, and I think ICE is domestic terror. I think,
Yeah.
instead of working to curb domestic terror, they're creating it.
Yeah.
And I think that Trump is not solving problems, he's just creating problems. He's the opposite of what a good leader should be.
Yeah.
He should be, and I think there's so much hypocrisy among people who, wave their "Don't tread on me" flags, and yet they're supporting this government that's completely trampling on the rights of all sorts of different people in the country.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and so I mean, I don't know how you feel. I feel overwhelmed by it. Of course, they're trying to flood the zone is their whole strategy, and it's succeeding in certain ways. It's definitely
Yeah.
overwhelming people, but I don't
Yeah.
know how
I have a hard time choosing what to pick and stuff, But I was going to ask this later, but I might as well ask it now and stuff. Part of I try to focus on only a few issues for my mental health and stuff.
hmm
But it doesn't always succeed because something pops up in the news that just scares me and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I can, so I'm trying to learn more about how Trump is affecting the Filipino American community, and that necessarily involves immigration and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, but I always get sidetracked because Jimmy Kimmel is going to get uh, canceled because of the FCC and stuff. So he's using the government to silence free speech, even though that has nothing. That's not necessarily an immigration issue. That's just an issue that's too important not to deal with, right? And stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, do you pick your spots, or I mean, how are you picking subjects on? I mean, you're basically worried about everything, but how does that affect your mental health? I mean,
I did make a decision a while, maybe a year ago or something, that I had to limit how much media I was taking in. I
yeah.
basically turned off um all my what do you call them? The pop-ups on your phone,
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah. The
uh
notifications. Yeah,
notifications. Yeah, I turned off all my news notifications and everything
yeah,
like that because it was disrupting my flow of work because it would just keep pulling away my attention from what I was trying to focus on. And then also, yeah, it was just alarming to just be, everything that pops up is another outrage. So
yeah,
it would just completely, it's so upsetting. But um, I'm, so I limit how and when I get the news. I'm certainly not putting in favor of putting my head in the sand and ignoring the news. I definitely follow it probably more than the average person, but I used to be a real news junkie where I would just follow it all the time, and I found I can't really do that anymore.
yeah,
Another thing for me is that I've kind of made this decision at the moment while I'm still doing cartoons under my own name to a degree for the Boston Globe and other places. I've really decided to put more of my focus on my Kelly work for The Onion
Oh,
because, as I was alluding to earlier, I'm thinking a lot about like what is getting through and reaching people. And Kelly has 8 times as many social media followers as I do. And
oh,
so
really?
my Kelly work really seems to be reaching more people than my own work.
Is that
Um,
weird? Is that weird? I mean,
it's funny. It's yeah, it is weird. It's like uh,
yeah,
but it's something I've always liked because I've always I've never been somebody who's like, oh, I want to be famous or something. But I
yeah,
have always wanted my work to get out there, my work to be seen. That's been a
yeah,
goal of mine. So, um, the idea of cartooning under the guise of Stan Kelly is actually great because it's not about me. It's this crazy guy and his
yeah,
cartoons. And I think part of what appeals with the Kelly cartoons is that the times right now are so distressing
yeah,
that Kelly is such an absurdist that the way that he comments on things or what he chooses to comment on is just so weird that it's a way for people to laugh and to grab their attention, but it also, in this roundabout way, brings up issues that are uh, important. In a way, kind of like Stephen Colbert's first show, The Colbert Report, where
yeah,
he
yeah,
he assumed that identity of like a Bill O'Reilly type guy.
yeah,
These cartoons are kind of doing a somewhat similar thing. And
yeah.
so it's almost like, what's the saying? You attract more with honey than with vinegar. I can't remember that
Oh, yeah,
saying.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Um, and so I think like offering something that's very fun and funny can draw people in and then also hopefully get them to think in a roundabout way about some of these very serious issues happening. Um,
yeah,
like the Onion itself,
yeah,
I think is really at the top of its game right now. I'm grateful and honored to be working with them. I think they're very they're dedicated and they're funny, and again, this kind of goes back to me talking about how I feel comedy is part of what I'm doing. Like I have to
yeah.
try to make what I'm doing funny too, and that's part of the goal.
Yeah, well, that's part of the thing with like Jimmy Kimmel and um authoritarians want you to be scared.
Hmm.
And I somebody from India told me that comedians there are being threatened with lawsuits and stuff. But part of the thing is if you can make somebody laugh at an autocrat, that makes them less afraid and stuff. And even
Hmm.
though that's a small contribution, that's still an important contribution to
Yeah,
helping fight against authoritarian. It's just making you see the absurdity of the autocrat and stuff,
yeah,
and saying, you're trying to make me scared, but I'm laughing at you instead and stuff.
yeah,
That's
right
actually
on.
a very important thing and stuff. So, I hate to say we have 5 minutes for this first meeting and
Okay.
stuff, but yeah, are you enjoying the talk so far?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes. How about
yeah. I
you?
don't I don't think we're going to get through all my questions, but I don't mind and stuff because what I'm really looking for is just a relaxed conversation. We've gotten through two questions, so I don't think I don't think. But so okay, this is part of. I'll ask one more is quickly in 5 minutes and stuff if you can answer. But has it been, you know, has it been hard doing political spoofs when the Trump administration itself is so crazy?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it has. Um, I feel like I don't know, I'd be interested to hear how you feel as well. Is it hard for you too?
Um, kind of, but I'm my cartoon. It's funny. My fine arts is more humorous. My political cartoons actually aren't that funny and stuff. And because for the past few years I've been more focused on Duterte in the Philippines, and it's
Yeah,
really I don't really I feel disrespectful trying to make fun of extrajudicial killings and
yeah.
stuff. And so but yeah, although I envy cartoonists who are funny and stuff. So like
Mhm.
you and stuff. But um, yeah, it's hard for me to think of something funny when what I mean, my wife is always cracking up over what Trump's doing and stuff, even though she thinks he's crazy and stuff, just because I don't think you can think of anything funnier than what he's doing already. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel or?
Yeah. I mean, I also feel a little bit like I've I've done so many cartoons about Trump over years now that I think after the election, I just was really feeling burnt out and feeling a little bit like I've done this for 10 years and now he's seemingly stronger than ever. Like he's got more power, he's back. And I think that's what's lended to my shift to focus more on my Kelly work than my Ward Sutton work.
Yeah,
Um, uh, Taking more of an absurdist approach to it than just a more straightforward critical approach. But I do think it's important to keep, I think satire's greatly important.
yeah,
And being able to be critical of our government is crucial to democracy.
yeah,
Um, and I completely cheer on everybody in our profession, to keep going, keep doing it.
yeah.
Um, but it does start to feel hard sometimes when it feels a little redundant. And even if Trump hasn't hit Duterte levels, there is that feeling at times of like, how do you make it funny that ICE masked government agents are kidnapping people off the street? I mean, it's beyond absurd. And the
Yeah,
fact
and then
that
sending them overseas and some
and that some of them
I
might
don't
be
know if
a US.
gulag is the right word, but some crazy prison and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And the fact that some of these people are US citizens and and the Trump administration shrugs and says, "Oh, they probably deserve it then anyway," or something. I mean, it's very
yeah,
racist and
yeah,
it's totally horrifying. It's almost like it's hard to even believe it's happening. But
yeah. Hey,
I,
I'm glad you came back.
yeah.
I,
Have you?
I actually don't remember where we were in our conversation before we left on the break, but like, I might as well ask you and stuff a question. In the 1950s, Herblock and Walt and Walt Kelly, they were two of the few people willing to take on McCarthy during the height of the Red Scare.
Yeah,
I think part of what we were talking about was the responsibility of cartoonists during this time of Trump. What do you
yeah.
think our responsibilities are during this second Trump administration?
I mean, as always, to hold those in power to account, I think is
Mm,
our job, and to not shy away from it, and not cower, not bend. I think the hard thing artistically is how to not become redundant and repetitive because there's just been such a re ongoing onslaught on all of us. I've pulled up cartoons from 6, 7 years ago that seem just as relevant right now. I
yeah,
actually had one that I posted, and somebody asked me if they could rerun it, and I said you totally can,
yeah.
but I want you to know this isn't a new cartoon. It came out in 2017, and they said, "Oh, we can only run new cartoons." So sorry. So
Um,
they didn't run it, but it shows that it was just, there's so much of what's happening now that's just a repeat. I feel like we're in like uh, the worst like repeat television show ever.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious though. I when Herblock and Walt Kelly were around and stuff, they had a
Yeah.
big audience because newspapers were thriving.
Yes. Yes.
In our we're more with newspapers, you know, I'm sure the Boston Globe is doing well, but I'm and the Onion's doing well, but I'm in general newspapers have been in decline and stuff. So one of the things I wonder about that I've asked other cartoonists is I always worry that I'm preaching to the choir and stuff, but when I mentioned this to a poet who does political poetry, she mentioned sometimes the choir needs to be preached. and stuff. So like when I was doing my Duterte cartoons, I was basically trying to warn the Filipino American community that what Duterte is doing is dangerous and stuff. And but Dutarte's popularity in the Philippines was around 80% and stuff. But
Wow.
and I don't know what Dutarte's popularity was among Filipino Americans. It may be similar, it may be different, but
Hmm.
I began to think if I can't reach Duterte supporters, maybe I can tell the opponents of Duterte that they're not alone, that
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay to dissent and stuff. Do you feel? I'm trying to think of what my question is. Do you feel a certain sense of like? Do you think your cartoon, like your Kelly cartoons, are they more? Can they reach? They're reaching audiences that you as Ward Sutton can't reach.
I kind of
And
think so.
okay,
I think they do have more of a reach, which is why I've decided to put more of a focus on them at the moment. I think,
okay,
I think, I think you're identifying something that does seem really problematic is the way news has become so siloed that people just only want to see the things that reinforce their own views. And um, as the newspaper industry is just taking more and more hits, you think about, well, where is it for cartoonists to go? And I know a big solution for many has been to have a Substack, have a newsletter where they can control it, they can make money directly, there's no middleman. And
yeah,
I see a lot of appeal of that, and I've certainly considered it. I have not decided to do it for myself. I
yeah,
think one thing that's a little bit hard is that when newspapers were flourishing more and editorial cartoonists were a mainstay of newspapers, it was sort of like the town square where everybody would read it. Everybody would get the newspaper, not just liberals or not just conservatives. People would pick it up and they would see both points of view. And I just think that's so valuable. And now I do agree that the choir does need preaching to sometimes, and there's a real value in boosting morale people who kind of share your views. And I think that's totally valid. And I've been operating with a lot of that
hmm,
during my career because
yeah,
there's things that I draw that I think no Trumper is going to look at this and think it's funny, or
yeah,
that,
yeah,
or
yeah,
that, or that they're going to agree with it necessarily. But I also have felt like I don't want to couch everything in just trying to appeal to somebody who disagrees with me, because that
yeah,
doesn't always make for a good cartoon.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I really think the whole notion of how you get people to see your work is like really a crucial question right now. Like, how do you get it out there to people? Um,
yeah. I
yeah,
don't have an
and and
answer either.
and and,
I
and for
don't, I
me,
don't, I don't
and I
have
don't
the answer either.
and I don't know about you, but for me, it's really complicated with the issue of these social media platforms that are run by these billionaires who are sucked up to Trump now.
Yeah,
I mean, Elon Musk, the worst example. I basically stopped posting my work on X anymore.
yeah.
But
Are
but
you a Blue
Mark's,
Sky person now? A Blue
yeah,
Sky?
I do like
Yeah,
Blue Sky. Yeah. But Facebook and Instagram with Mark Zuckerberg like going to the White House and praising Trump and giving him
oh, yeah,
millions
you
of
saw
dollars.
that, right? I
Yeah.
saw that. The Washington Post had a little segment where like all of these Silicon Valley, people were sucking up to Trump, and I was kind of shocked. I didn't that I kept on thinking. You remember I was saying about sometimes reality can be crazier than anything we can think of and stuff. This was one
Yeah.
of those moments I was thinking that and stuff. I was thinking,
Yeah.
is my eyes fooling me? But it was the Washington Post, so I knew it wasn't fake and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a friend of mine was knows I work for the Onion, and he's like he wanted to propose to them that they should do a special issue where it's just the real news, but it's so absurd that it looks like an Onion article, which I thought was a really funny idea. And then, later that day, I saw an article that was PBS auctioning Bob Ross's paintings to try to make up for their budget shortfall. And that just
oh
sounds like an Onion article. Like, Bob
yeah,
Ross,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
painting guy, they're
yeah,
selling
yeah.
paintings now
Oh,
because
that's actually real.
That's real. Yeah. But it sounds like an Onion article, right? I mean, it's so absurd.
I
It's
thought you
where
were
we
kidding
are.
me.
No, it's true.
Okay.
It was in the New
Yeah.
York Times. So it
Oh
is. We're
man.
living in very, very weird times for sure.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times I don't know what to say. You
Mhm.
know, you hear something and I'm thinking like my wife, she talks to me about the news sometimes. She asks my opinion. Oftentimes I'm speechless. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm fairly knowledgeable, about news at that time, at certain subjects and stuff. But yeah, but
I,
I think
I,
part of it is just I'm wrong a lot and stuff. For the past 2016, a lot of the things I thought would happen I've been wrong so much. I don't trust my opinions anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Uh, I've definitely never wanted to be a predictor in my cartoons. I think um, when Trump was running for office the first time, you might see a late night comedian say, you know, make a joke like, because you will never be president, Donald Trump, and that got a big
Yeah.
laugh line and a big cheer from the audience. But I sat there and was like, don't say that. You don't know that's gonna be the reality, and it's like famous last words.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. And when yeah, not knowing what to say. I mean, I don't know if you get this a lot, but do you get a lot of people who are saying, "Oh, wow, times are so crazy. You must be having a field day. It must be so great to be a cartoonist because you've got so much material."
Yeah.
Do you get that from people?
Once in a while, but I'm more scared that I don't have the readership I used to have. I'm no longer in the Philippines. I put stuff in the cartoon movement and
Okay.
stuff. So I don't know if Europeans would get my cartoons and
Okay.
stuff and
Yeah.
stuff. But so I don't know the viewership of the cartoon movement and stuff. But there's a Philippine uh cartoon group that I sometimes contribute to, but I do mostly Filipino American affairs and stuff.
Mhm.
So um when I do stuff in the Philippines, I feel like I'm retreading old ground because those cartoons are already doing stuff on that, and they're more knowledgeable than I am and stuff. So,
Okay.
but
I may
yeah.
have I may have mentioned to you my sister-in-law is Filipino. She lives in the Bay
Oh,
Area. Yeah, so
oh, okay.
get a I'll have to turn her on to your cartoons.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want her to get too depressed. Well, Marcos is now, but we were saying, one of the things, Duterte is now arrested. The ICC arrested him. So that there's a
That's
little bit of sign
hopeful.
of hope and stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah.
and stuff. And his daughter, Sarah Duterte, I think there's she was about to be impeached and stuff. She threatened to behead Marcos and stuff. So do you hear
Wow.
about that and stuff? No.
No. Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
okay. Yeah, so yeah, look it up. Go to YouTube and watch it and stuff. It's kind of scary, but um yeah, I don't know. I always feel like autocrats have some sort of mental illness and stuff because there's nobody to act as checks and balances to their worst tendencies. So they
Yeah.
get to indulge in their worst tendencies, and I don't think that's good for your mental health if you do that and stuff. So I mean, that's one of the worries I have with Trump right now is that with nobody to tell him no and stuff. What does that do to his? Does that make his mental health even worse than it is now and stuff?
Right. I
Yeah,
think you're totally right. That totally makes sense to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
and stuff. So, oh,
Yeah. But I
yeah,
but I don't know, that question of, I mean, it's something I get all the time is people saying like, "Oh, it must be great for you to be a cartoonist now with all this material," and I've heard that for years and years. So like the day after the election last fall, I did a cartoon that I sketched it out really roughly.
uh,
I sent it to Politico. I said,
yeah.
"Here's an idea for a cartoon." And it was like me holding a gun to my head and somebody saying, "Now you've got a lot more material now that Trump won again." And I'm like, and um and and then we decided that I said, well, I can do the finished drawing, and then we talked about it. We're like, actually, it looks better just as a rough sketch because it looks like you're haggard as you're drawing. It looks appropriate. So we just ran it as it was. But then I got a message from somebody saying, you're making fun of suicide, and that's bad. I'm
Oh,
like, oh
yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
you can't win sometimes, It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Um,
I certainly did not mean to, I apologized and said was not my intent. I'm going to remember that in the future that that could trigger people. But anyway,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But sometimes, people are going to if you have a wide audience, there's going to be bound to be somebody who's going to misinterpret your cartoons, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. For
Yeah,
better or worse.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't have a bigger readership as you do and stuff, but yeah, but yeah, some people have misinterpreted mine too and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I do have a question that kind of leads to what we're talking about right now. I love your speech when you won the Herblock Award in 2018.
Oh,
And
thank
you,
you so much.
oh yeah, it was a wonderful speech. It was very humane and stuff. That's what I loved about it. I think you mentioned that in your speech that you wanted your cartoons to tell your readers to stop and think about what they're doing, right? And stuff.
Hmm.
That was very that's a very kind speech, and I'm wondering, is that still your purpose and stuff in your cartoons?
Um, yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I, again, I think it kind of goes back to trying to figure out how you can reach people,
Yeah,
what's gonna break through all the noise and reach somebody. And so um I I hope that what I'm doing makes people do what you're describing, makes them stop and think about what they're doing, make
uh,
them think about
actually,
the
you were the
world.
one who said that, not me.
Well, as you describe it, I mean, yeah. Right.
Yeah,
But I hope that still happens, although it may happen in a slightly different way. It might be a roundabout way
yeah,
that making somebody laugh at something first, but then hopefully as it sinks in and the greater context of the joke sinks in, they start to take it seriously. I think there's such an onslaught of depressing news that I've felt like I don't know that drawing depressing cartoons is going to help anybody.
yeah,
I'm not saying they're not valid for those who choose to do that, and I think everybody's voice at this juncture is important, however they want to do it. But I don't want to, I don't want to both, uh, I don't want to just create more depressing content.
yeah,
And I also fear making Trump like a buffoonish character who's just funny. Like sometimes with Saturday Night Live or things like that, I can worry about that a little bit. Like,
yeah,
oh, good, the Trump guy's on, and then it becomes this lovable character that sort of normalizes him in our life.
yeah,
And I don't really want to do that either. So, and I've tried, I tried after Trump lost in 2020. Um, I sort of vowed to myself, I'm not going to draw him. I don't want to keep giving him attention. I don't want to give him oxygen. So for
yeah,
years, I didn't draw him anymore
yeah,
in my cartoons. Um, and then at some point, when it became obvious that he was going to be the Republican candidate in 2024, it's like, well, I guess I have to now. Like I can't avoid the fact that he's part
yeah.
of the landscape. But that was just, yeah.
Do
I,
you
I would be
worry?
happy to never draw him again.
Yeah, yeah. Do you worry that in making him too buffoonish, you you underestimate the threat that he poses? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I do feel that
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that's why my cartoons aren't as funny, I guess, and stuff. But um, just because when I was doing Duterte, Duterte is no longer president, it's Marcos, right? But when I was doing Duterte, I was really trying to amp up the threat because my cartoons were just trying to say to the, I think I mentioned this before. This is a warning, guys. What's going on across the sea in the Philippines is not is it's going to have an effect on all of us Filipino Americans and stuff. So,
Yeah.
but but I don't know.
Did you ever get pushback from Filipino readers or anybody
If I
reacting?
did, I don't. If I did, I think my editor shielded me because I never saw. I think the one thing I had, I went a couple years ago. I went to my old high school friends. Her mom passed away, and I hadn't seen her in 20 years. So I went to the wake, and I met my former dentist. And my former dentist straight up told me she was a Duterte supporter and that she didn't like my cartoons. And it was a very uncomfortable night and stuff. So, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to make a scene in this wake, because I hadn't seen my old friend for a while and stuff. But I think that was my only negative, you know, real negative. I have a feeling some people, didn't like my cartoons, but just didn't say anything. But that was my one time somebody was explicit. But I told the story before, so I want to mention that she's no longer my dentist. So,
Okay, that's good. I think that's good. That's safe, a
so,
safe choice by you.
but she
Yeah.
was a former friend and stuff. But that
Hmm.
actually leads to do you have friends who are Trump supporters and stuff? I'm liberal, but I used to have close conservative friends,
Uh-huh.
and I lost a lot of those friendships during the Trump, as the times got more partisan, and especially when I listened to your speech, I thought of those former friends and stuff, and my sadness and stuff. Is that part of the motivation with you? Is that um, you want people to think, but you're specific, maybe, like when I heard it, I thought of my friends who I lost to the
Hmm.
Trump thing. Is that part of your experience too, or no?
Yeah, I had one friend that was like my best friend growing up, and we're basically estranged now.
Yeah,
Um, and it's complicated, but I think politics plays a big role in that.
yeah.
Um, I would say that most of the people that I'm friends with that lean more conservative are also kind of horrified by Trump. So
So they're
uh,
anti-Trump conservatives.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that they would have been, there's a guy who had been the head of the Republican Party in the state of North Dakota,
So
and he was just totally anti-Trump.
yeah,
He's passed away now, but um, so yeah, I haven't had any close friends who have gone Trump that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. Um, a couple relatives, perhaps, but we don't really get into it too much.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I haven't had anybody. I've had people tell me like, "Oh, I don't like your cartoons or your cart." Yeah, I don't agree with you, but it's nice to see you, but I don't agree with what you do, or something. But thankfully, haven't had so much of that during the Trump era. I might
yeah.
have gotten more vocal pushback like during the Bush era or something like that, but.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but during the Trump era, I don't know, it hasn't. Maybe also it feels a little bit like maybe people are a little bit so exhausted by how polarized everything is. Maybe a lot of people just want to avoid it, no matter
Yeah.
where they stand. I don't know.
It's sort of what's that called? I heard that political exhaustion.
Yeah,
You're just tired of getting caught up in the arguments and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just with some extended family recently, and the um one of the people who he said, I feel like I just don't have a home politically anymore. And I think he would have typically been a Republican voter, but he does not like Trump. So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That sounds like my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was conservative, but he hated Trump. So he left the Republican Party. He joined the Democrats, but he's still trying to figure out how he fits into Democrats. I think if the Republican Party was sane, that would be a more comfortable fit for him. But
Hmm.
he just doesn't like he doesn't like Trump and stuff. So he went to the Democrats and stuff. And he's but the thing with the Democrats, we don't have that many conservative Democrats anymore. So if they still had a lot of them, and if there were more Joe Manchins and stuff, he probably would fit in better and stuff. But
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Well, and I think the Democrats have a lot of soul searching to do to try to figure out how do they win back and appeal to more of those middle moderate voters without abandoning the principles behind the marginalized people they're trying to represent too. I think it's a
yeah,
real conundrum.
yeah,
Um, because
that's my big thought is how do you appeal to especially the working class Trump supporters
mhm.
without throwing under the bus minority groups that are threatened by Trump and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a dilemma I've had for several years, and I don't really know how to solve it and stuff. Because if you look, Trump, his support, he doesn't have a majority of people supporting him. The reason he's got political power is because those working class communities in Michigan, in Pennsylvania support him and stuff. But those supporters used to be Democrats and stuff.
Hmm.
And I'm always wondering, how do we lose them and how can we win them back and stuff? But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah. I just got back from a long road trip basically across the US South,
Oh,
um,
okay.
and into some rather poor areas like in Arkansas and such. And my wife and I came away really like with our eyes wide open, like, yeah, nobody out here cares that Trump's threatening Harvard's funding. It's
Yeah.
like or, they're just trying to buy eggs to put on the table or whatever they're trying to do. You realize like, oh, we live with a certain amount of privilege to be able to think about things that they don't even, I think it's easy to build up grievances against people who aren't pro-environment or something, but if you're just scraping by and trying to survive and feed your children, I can
Yeah.
see how certain things fall off your radar or aren't, you can't even conceive of them. You're just trying to get by. So it was eye-opening to see some of these places and
Was it heartbreaking, I guess, too, or
a little bit, yeah, a little
okay.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it gave me a lot to think about.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, like because I always think that Trump basically co-opted two, two things from the left. I mean, Bernie Sanders, they were warning about NAFTA in the 90s, and Trump co-opted that. And then the anti-war left in the 2000s against the Iraq War, Trump co-opted. It always annoys me when he attacks the left when he's actually co-opting a lot of ideas from the left and
That's a
stuff.
really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff. So I'm always like, oh, come on, But nobody listens to this lone Filipino American editorial cartoonist in Silicon Valley. I I wish I could talk to them and say like, you know what, Bobby Kennedy, Jesse Jackson, Paul Wellstone. These are people from the left that advocated for the working class and minorities. Minorities are not your enemies and stuff.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff. But I don't have the readership, and that's the thing about the silo, right? And stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, that might be the thing about your Stan Kelly cart. You might be able to reach him and stuff that I can never reach just because I don't think my cartoons ever reach those areas and stuff.
Hmm.
And even if I did, they did. I think I'm a little bit too liberal for them now and stuff. But
Yeah.
but I care about them. They're fellow Americans. I want them to do well too. I just you know you know my first priority is protecting the Filipino American community, but I care about the working class. These
Hmm.
working class white voters and communities. I don't want them to be suffering either and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why were you taking that trip? Were you just taking a cross-country trip to discover America, or?
It was, we were invited to a wedding in Nashville, and then we
Oh,
decided, why don't we make a bigger trip out of it? And we've never been to this part of the country, and we'll visit some friends and family along the way. And it was,
okay. Did you
yeah.
go to the Grand Old Opry and stuff, or?
We were, we were, we didn't attend an event there, but we were out, we saw the building and we saw the whole area. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that must
fun.
have been cool and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Is it?
it was cool.
Was it a beautiful area, or?
Yeah, I really uh we kind of wandered, and one of the places I really enjoyed was Tulsa.
Oh,
And they have a this fantastic museum dedicated to the Tulsa massacre of 1921.
oh,
And,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it just opened a few years ago, and it was I was really impressed. I would highly recommend it to anybody.
yeah,
Um, uh, and plus other things there. It was a pretty cool town. So yeah, we kind of saw it. We saw some cities. Went through did some camping
yeah.
along the way, but it was fun.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Well,
Yeah.
let me ask. Um, what gives you hope? I mean, did traveling around that part of the country give you some hope in these kind of scary times, or?
Um, I think what gives me hope is realizing that there are sometimes I'll read a news piece or something and get really angry and uh, really freaked out about it, and then I'll realize there are millions of people who are having the same reaction I am,
Yeah,
to this, and that it's not like even though like what I would think is a fringe section of thinking in this country has control over most of the levers of power, which is hugely disconcerting. I do
mhm,
think they're not the majority, and that most people, when you meet them, are generally good people.
yeah,
Um, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy for us to get through this period, but it's my hope, also relying on the fact that most people have been hopefully adequately educated about the Holocaust and
yeah,
authoritarianism in history. And I hope, certain things, I'm dismayed by things that are going on that aren't getting any checks and balances. But
yeah,
I'm hoping, I think some of that comes from people not being informed or being led to believe it's fake news,
yeah, yeah,
Um, even the way Trump says, "Oh, when you saw that, it's just AI," trying to
yeah,
insinuate that like videos people might see
yeah,
of disturbing things that the Trump administration's doing to kind of plant that seed that, oh, it might all be fake, it might be AI. I mean,
yeah.
that's super dangerous, but um, I'm hoping people are smarter than that, but you never know. I don't know. Um, uh,
Oh, I
yeah,
don't really have an answer and stuff. I'm hoping, even though I don't have a good reason to hope, you
yeah.
know. But but um, I think for me, I don't like Trump, but I don't hate Trump supporters because a few used to be my friends. I
Hmm.
can never forget the humanity of the Trump supporters and stuff.
Hmm.
I just think they're brainwashed right now
Yeah,
into believing something that's actually I always think Trump's policies actually hurt his own supporters,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But I don't want them to be hurt and stuff, but I also want them to snap out of it and stuff. And
yeah,
yeah, I don't have a good idea on how and stuff. So, but
yeah. I think it's a lot about identifying with him, and or that he seems to stand for them. He's such a figure of grievance.
yeah,
I Another thing I hope could happen is that at some point people are just tired of being angry all the time.
yeah,
It's like Trump supporters. It all seems fueled by anger and grievance. At some point, don't people get tired of that? Don't they just want to be joyful or find the good in life or celebrate things that are good? But I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I don't know either and stuff. I've been spending the past few years baffled.
I hear you. Yeah.
But like with my former friends and stuff, when I got into it brought out the worst in me. And I don't like how I became my worst self and stuff.
Mm,
And I tried to and yeah, but it brought out the worst in them too and stuff. And I'm hoping that they had the same feelings I do and stuff, because even though we're no longer friends, I don't want anything bad to happen to them and stuff. I just think that the direction they're going is going to lead into big trouble for our country and stuff. So
hmm. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm glad you have hope and stuff. My hope is based on I always worry my hope is based on illusion. But
Yeah.
so when I ask cartoonists this, I'm always grasping, well, if you guys have hope, then I should have hope too, you know?
Yeah. It takes a bit of work, but I try. Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear
yeah, yeah.
you.
So yeah. I'm curious. Did you go to the convention this year?
I didn't. No, I was, I think I was on this trip. I was traveling and going to this wedding and stuff when that happened, I believe.
Oh, okay, okay. Some friends of mine told me that you can love America, but until you travel through America, you won't appreciate how wonderfully diverse this country is. So I had this idea of visiting all 50 states. I've hit 20 so far, which is
Okay.
pretty, yeah, but I think I'm stalled right now because of my caregiving and stuff. But once that's at some point in the future, my wife and I want to travel, to go try to hit all 50 states again. What do you recommend in the South? So you recommend Tulsa, right? Do you recommend Nashville or?
I think with Nashville, I had my expectations were really raised high.
Oh,
There's been so much it's written about it lately, and I was a little mixed about it.
okay.
Asheville, North Carolina is wonderful. I don't know if you've ever been there, but that was a great place to visit.
Oh, okay. What's there?
Um, it's a very there's like music scene, a microbrewery scene, art scene. They were really
Oh,
hit hard by Hurricane Helene a year ago, which I hadn't
oh,
realized just how bad that was. And so
yeah,
we have some good friends and some family who live there, and we
yeah.
got a real front row view of that, and it was devastating to see. Especially this arts district got wiped out by the flooding after the hurricane. So but they're bouncing back.
Oh,
So
good, good, good.
resilient. That's pretty cool. Um, this isn't exactly the South, but discovered Pittsburgh lately too, and that's a really cool city.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, okay,
had not ever spent time there before, but I'm a fan.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Well, here's my recommendation. Go to New
Uh,
Mexico and stuff. My wife and I went on our honeymoon in New Mexico um, several decades ago, but
uh-huh.
and there's a hot air balloon festival
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Albuquerque. We for our honeymoon, we went there. We went to Taos and we went to I think Santa Fe and stuff. But in the Albuquerque Hot Air Balloon Festival, you get to see 800 balloons float up in the air, and you're right in the middle of the field. And some of the balloons are shaped like cows. There's this one balloon that's shaped like Jesus.
Wow.
There's all these, and when you're in, it's like you're back. You become a little kid again. And
Wow.
so that, I would, if you ever go to New Mexico, nobody ever thinks of New Mexico, but that's a beautiful place to go and stuff.
Yeah. We actually did go there on our trip.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
we went through because we're just in Colorado right above, and so we went south and then we went east, I guess uh,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, we went to there's a place called Ojo Caliente, which is this sort of hot springs spa type place
Oh,
that has been there since the 1800s, and that
oh
was
wow.
really cool. And we went to Santa Fe and made it. We've been there a few times. We've been to Meow Wolf, which is really trippy, and this time we went to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, which was pretty
Oh yeah,
cool.
yeah.
But I've heard about that balloon event. I've had friends who've gone to that as
Yeah.
well, and it sounds amazing.
Go early.
Okay.
Traffic is bad by, we woke up at 5:30, we left at 6. This is 2005, right? So we
Okay.
were there, but if you do go there, I recommend it, but go early. But the night before, there's also a thing where a few balloons, around dusk, they blow up the balloons and there's light. So, that's I don't know what you call that, where from within the balloon you see a light and stuff, and it's beautiful and stuff. So
Wow.
yeah,
Amazing.
and it's only if it's only a state away and stuff. I think
Yeah,
it's October, September, October. I forgot when it was, September, October, and stuff.
that sounds
It's
great.
gorgeous and stuff. So yeah,
Oh, we'll have to.
yeah.
I'm glad you're saying that. I'm going to put that on our list.
Taos is pretty good too, but we went when we were there. It was raining and stuff. But there's a nice Native American, I think, reservation there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they have these clowns, but they're not circus clowns, but they're Native American clowns, and they chase all the children. The children are scared of them for some reason, and I think they stole one of them stole my hat, but my wife went through the crowd trying to get my hat back and stuff. So that told me she was a good wife to marry and stuff. So
Yeah. Way to go.
yeah, yeah. So